Don't drink it. He switched your pills. The whisper floated behind Victoria Hale like a draft of wind against the back of her neck, so soft she nearly missed it. But the wide, dark eyes staring at her from the corner of the room froze her hand mid-air. The pill sat in her palm, just inches from her lips. Victoria blinked, turning slowly toward the small black girl in the mustard-yellow sweater dress, standing quietly against the glass wall. It was Mia, 6 years old, the daughter of her late housekeeper who died in a car crash 2 months ago. Victoria's fingers tightened, the pill dropping back into her hand. "What did you say?" she asked, keeping her voice even. Mia didn't repeat herself. Instead, she stepped forward and held up an old, cracked tablet. The screen flickered and played a grainy video. There, plain as day, was Leo Victoria's live-in boyfriend opening the medicine drawer, removing her pill bottle, replacing it with another unlabeled one, and locking the drawer again. No sound. No hesitation. Just calm, practiced movements. A chill tightened around Victoria's spine. Her heart thudded once. Hard. Leo? That's impossible. He loves me, doesn't he? Her hands clenched around the tablet. She forced herself to breathe. "When did you record this?" "Yesterday," Mia whispered. "I was on the sofa. I pretended to sleep." Victoria turned off the screen and sat down on the leather chair by the window. Her eyes fell to the pill still resting in her palm, then drifted toward the vineyard-covered hills outside. The glass mansion perched atop Sonoma Valley felt unnaturally quiet now. She was 28, hailed as the youngest biotech billionaire in California by Forbes. But in this moment, she felt like a porcelain doll about to crack. She rubbed her temple, eyes narrowing. Why have I been so tired lately? Why the dizziness? Is it stress or something in the pills? She glanced at the bottle again, lips pressed thin. Just then, Leo walked in, white shirt sleeves rolled up, smile perfectly in place. "Little one giving you trouble again?" he asked, sliding a hand onto her shoulder. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, then returned his smile with one of her own. Faint, controlled, number, just a little dizzy. She leaned forward as if unsteady. Leo picked up a glass of water and offered it. "Then take your meds. You'll feel better." Victoria nodded, slipping the pill quietly back into the bottle behind his back. She closed her eyes for a second. "Don't react. Not yet. I need time. I need to be sure." Mia remained in the corner, clutching her tablet tightly to her chest. Sunlight poured through the massive windows, casting 3 long shadows across the polished wooden floor. And in that stillness a whispered warning may have just saved a life, while quietly unlocking the door to a secret far more dangerous than the little girl could possibly know. Victoria Hale stood by the kitchen counter the next morning, swirling a spoon through her coffee that had long gone cold. The sun bathed the glass walls in a golden glow, yet she felt no warmth. Her mind was running loops last night's footage, Mia's voice, Leo's smile. Everything had cracked just enough to let the question slip in. She glanced at the sleek black pill bottle now tucked inside her jacket pocket. It hadn't left her sight since she'd hidden it the previous night. She hadn't taken the pill. She hadn't slept much either. Across the room, Leo's voice filtered in from the patio, light and cheerful. He was on the phone. "Yeah, she's a little off lately, but I've got it under control. Just a matter of time." The words, though casual, made Victoria's grip tighten around her cup. Who was he talking to? And what does under control mean? Her instincts stirred. She pressed her back against the marble counter, trying to collect herself. Play it calm. Don't accuse. Don't tip him off yet. She smoothed her blouse, fixed her expression, and stepped toward the patio. Leo turned around at her presence, flashing the same charming smile that used to melt her. "Morning, sweetheart. Feeling any better?" "A little," she replied, keeping her tone light. "Coffee helps." He walked over, kissed her temple. "I was thinking we get away for a few days. Take a break from all the pressure. You've been pushing yourself too hard." She forced a smile. "That sounds nice." He reached into the pocket of his robe and pulled out the familiar gray pill bottle, gently placing it on the counter. "Don't forget to take your meds, okay? Dr. Hale needs her brain sharp." "Ah." Victoria looked at the bottle like it might bite. She picked it up with steady hands. "I'll take it after breakfast." Leo nodded and poured himself a smoothie. "Mia still asleep?" "She's in her room," Victoria said, her eyes steady on him. "She's a quiet one, that girl. Observant." He chuckled. A little strange, too. Sometimes I catch her staring at me like she's reading my thoughts. Because she is, Victoria thought, but said nothing. After Leo left for the gym, Victoria climbed the stairs and knocked gently on Mia's door. The little girl opened it halfway, tablet still in her hand like a lifeline. "Can we talk?" Victoria asked softly. Mia stepped aside without a word. Her room was small, filled with second-hand toys, and a bed too big for her frame. She sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes watching, waiting. Victoria knelt down beside her. "Mia, what you showed me yesterday was very serious. Thank you." "Ot." Mia nodded but didn't speak. "I need you to tell me everything you've seen, not just that video, everything." Mia blinked. "He changes the bottles sometimes. He throws old ones in the trash outside, not in the kitchen bin. And he has 2 phones. I saw one under his pillow." Victoria's breath caught. "Are you sure?" Mia nodded again. "He talks to someone, late, after he thinks everyone's asleep." A pause settled between them. Victoria reached out, touched the girl's hand. "You're brave, Mia. Your mom would be proud." At the mention of her mother, Mia's eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. Mom said to watch people's eyes, that liars blink too slow. Victoria gave a small smile. "That's smart advice." She stood resolute. "I'll take care of this, but we have to be careful. Can you keep everything secret just like now?" "Yes," Mia whispered. Later that afternoon, Victoria sat at her home office desk, scrolling through emails while her mind swirled with doubts. She needed help, but from someone outside Leo's influence. She tapped open her secure contacts and found the name, Ravi Cohen, Veritas Biotech's lead research analyst. Someone she trusted, brilliant, quiet, loyal. She drafted a message, "Private matter, urgent, confidential lab analysis request. Can we meet off-site?" She hit send. Within minutes, Ravi replied, "Name the time and place." Victoria exhaled, then grabbed her keys. "Mia," she called, as the little girl peeked from around the stairway. "I have to go for a bit. Stay in your room. Don't talk to Leo unless you have to, okay?" Mia nodded solemnly. An hour later, in the back room of an independent lab outside Berkeley, Ravi held the gray pill bottle in gloved hands, his brow furrowed. "There's no label. Did your doctor prescribe this?" "It's supposed to be a cognitive supplement," Victoria said, trying not to show her trembling. "Just check it, please." Ravi nodded, moving quickly, precise. Victoria paced the small room as machines whirred, screens glowed, and silence thickened. 20 minutes passed. Then Ravi returned, jaw tight. "These pills aren't what you were told." "What are they?" she asked, heart hammering. "A compound blend mild sedatives, cognitive suppressants, and traces of a memory inhibitor. If taken regularly, it would cause confusion, mood shifts, mental fatigue, even make someone question their own reality." Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. "He's been giving me that for weeks." Ravi stared at her. "You need to cut him off. Immediately." "Not yet," she said quietly. "I need to know how far this goes, and I need proof. Enough that no one can spin it." He hesitated. "You're playing with fire." "I have no choice," she replied. "He's close. Too close." Ravi handed her the printed report and a small device. "This is a tracker. Hide it somewhere on him if you can. I'll keep digging." Victoria thanked him, then drove home in silence, thoughts racing like wild dogs. The lies, the manipulation, it wasn't just betrayal. It was strategic, methodical. Mia had seen it before anyone else, and I nearly didn't believe her. The next morning unfolded with a strange quiet in the Hale estate. Victoria moved through her home like a ghost, watchful, restrained, her every step deliberate. She had placed the tracker Ravi gave her inside the lining of Leo's gym bag while he was in the shower, her hands shaking only slightly. Now, she waited. The report confirming the pills were laced with memory inhibitors rested in her drawer, triple locked. She hadn't shown it to Anyoninot, even Mia. Not yet. Not until she had everything. Leo had left for his morning workout, flashing his usual smile, kissing her cheek, calling her his brilliant girl. It made her skin crawl. She watched his Tesla disappear down the driveway before turning back inside, calling softly, "Mia?" The little girl emerged from the study, barefoot, clutching her tablet as always. Her hair was in messy braids, and her eyes immediately scanned Victoria's face for signs of danger. "He's gone," Victoria said gently. "For a few hours." Mia nodded, inching closer. "I need your help," Victoria added. "Can you show me where he throws the old pill bottles?" Mia didn't speak. Instead, she took Victoria's hand and led her through the back hallway, down a narrow corridor rarely used. At the far end was a utility door leading to a secondary trash chute Victoria hadn't looked at in years. Mia stood on tiptoe, reached into the chute's lower cabinet, and pulled out a dusty plastic bag. Victoria knelt, put on gloves, and examined its contents. Among empty food wrappers and receipts, she found 3 bottles. 2 had no labels. 1 was partially filled, still sealed. Her breath caught. The seal was identical to the one Leo had given her weeks ago. "How long has he been doing this?" she asked. Mia tilted her head. "Since before Christmas." Victoria did the math. That was over 2 months. She sat back on her heels, throat dry. "He's been shaping me, breaking me down a little at a time, making me dependent." The betrayal clawed at her stomach, but she forced it down. "You're very brave, Mia. You notice things most people miss. My mom said to watch people's hands. Not just their mouths," Mia whispered, eyes lowering. "Hands lie slower." Victoria smiled sadly. She sounds like she was very wise. They returned to the kitchen, where Victoria placed the bagged evidence into a secure lockbox. Then she turned to Mia. "Do you remember the hidden vents you used to crawl into when you played hide-and-seek?" Mia nodded. "Can you still fit?" The girl's eyes lit up with curiosity. "Yes." "Good," Victoria said. "Tonight, I need you to help me again. We're going to watch what Leo does when he thinks no one's around." That evening, Victoria maintained her usual rhythm dinner with Leo on the patio, her laughter carefully timed, her eyes wide with pretend innocence. He didn't suspect a thing. If anything, he seemed smug, relaxed, too at ease. That made her nervous. "You've been doing better lately," Leo said, pouring her a glass of wine. "You've been sleeping more. That's good. You need rest, not stress." She nodded, sipping, then placing the glass back down untouched. "You make me feel safe." He reached over, squeezing her hand. "That's all I want." Later, once the house had quieted and Leo retreated to the den, Victoria gave Mia the signal. The little girl, in black leggings and a hoodie, slipped into the main air vent through the linen closet. Her tablet was strapped to her chest with duct tape, camera lens facing outward. Victoria monitored from her laptop in the study, heart pounding with each frame that passed. Mia crawled expertly through the duct, the image shaky but clear enough to see Leo's movements. He was on the phone. Victoria turned up the volume. "Tomorrow night," Leo said into his second phone, the one Mia had mentioned. "I'll have her sign everything. She's soft now, believes I'm trying to protect her." A pause. A chuckle. "No, she hasn't asked about the lab. I told her the memory fog was from trauma. She bought it." His tone turned colder. "I want the paperwork transferred within the hour after. The moment her shares are in my name, we proceed." Victoria's chest tightened. Her hand gripped the edge of the table. "After that," Leo continued, "I'll move her to a wellness facility. Early dementia. With the pills, no one will question it." Mia's tablet adjusted, showing Leo leaning back in the armchair, swirling his whiskey. He looked relaxed, confident, evil. Victoria sat frozen, the blood in her body roaring. He was going to erase me, quietly, legally, and no one would doubt it. She tapped her keyboard quickly, saving the footage to 3 separate hard drives. Then she messaged Ravi with a secure link. "Watch this now." Minutes later, his reply came. "Victoria, this is enough. We go to the FBI tonight." "No," she typed back. "Not yet. I want him to think he's won." Ravi's next message blinked. "That's dangerous." She hesitated, then replied. "So, is letting him finish what he started." Mia climbed out of the vent an hour later, dusty and silent. Victoria wrapped her in a blanket, holding her close. The girl didn't speak, but rested her head on Victoria's shoulder like it was the safest place in the world. "You did amazing," Victoria whispered. "You're the reason I'm still standing." Mia murmured, "I don't want him to hurt you." "He won't," Victoria promised, brushing her hair gently. "Because you saw him before I did. Because you believed what was true, even when I couldn't." And so, in the soft light of the study, with shadows dancing on the walls, Victoria finally understood she was no longer alone in this house. And tomorrow, Leo Graham would face someone far more dangerous than a young woman with questions. He would face a woman with answer sand, a child with courage. That night, as Leo curled beside her in bed and whispered sweet nothings, Victoria watched the way his eyes didn't blink when he said, "You trust me, right?" She smiled softly and kissed his cheek. "With my life." But inside, her heart whispered something else entirely. Not anymore. Victoria woke the next morning with the kind of clarity that made her stomach turn. The house was quiet, the air still, but beneath it all was the pulsing knowledge that tonight, everything would come to a head. Leo believed he had won, that his plan had worked, and that Victoria, fogged by chemicals and softened by affection, would obediently sign away her power. He had no idea that she was already 3 steps ahead. She moved through her morning ritual, like a well-rehearsed performance, coffee brewing, robe tied, hair pulled into a loose knot. Leo greeted her with a kiss on the forehead and a plate of scrambled eggs. "You slept well?" he asked, eyes scanning hers. "Like a baby," she lied, keeping her tone casual. "I think the new dosage is working." He smiled. "Good. You've seemed so relaxed lately." Victoria met his gaze, smiled back. "I trust you." And that, she thought as she turned away, was the most dangerous thing she could say to a man like Leo. Later that afternoon, Ravi arrived at the estate through the service entrance as planned. Disguised as a maintenance contractor, he wore a gray uniform and carried a toolbox filled not with wrenches, but with encrypted drives, backup devices, and a tiny pinhole camera. Victoria met him in the wine cellar. Her voice was low, urgent. "Is everything set?" "Yes," Ravi said. "The feed from Mia's tablet is secure and backed up. FBI agents are standing by. We wait for the verbal confirmation during tonight's call. Once he gives the order to transfer your shares, they'll move in." Victoria nodded. "And the legal team?" "Prepared. The moment Leo's in custody, a restraining order activates, and Veritas's board is notified. They've already voted in your favor, provided proof is solid." "It is," she said simply, eyes narrowing. "Thanks to Mia." Ravi hesitated. "You sure about letting her stay here tonight?" "She won't be alone," Victoria said. "She'll be in the safe room, watching with me." That evening, Victoria dressed in her softest cashmere sweater, the one Leo always said made her look vulnerable in the best way. She wore it on purpose. Vulnerability was now her shield. She wanted Leo to see exactly what he expected: a woman compliant, emotional, trusting. She served wine, lit candles, played soft jazz through the house system, the illusion of surrender. Leo arrived from the garage, dressed in a tailored black suit. He looked radiant, polished, ready for victory. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her hand. "I wanted tonight to feel special," Victoria replied, voice smooth. He smiled, then reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope. "These are the transition papers, just temporary until you're feeling like yourself again." Victoria took the folder, her fingers brushing his. She opened it slowly, eyes skimming the dense legalese, though she'd already memorized every line 2 days ago. The documents granted Leo full executive authority over Veritas Biotech, her personal estate, and her power of attorney. "I trust you," she said again, letting her fingers tremble slightly. Leo placed a reassuring hand on her back. "You won't regret this." From the study, hidden behind a panel wall, Mia watched everything on a screen, Ravi seated beside her. The pinhole camera was embedded in the vase on the fireplace mantel, its lens capturing every word, every gesture. The audio was clear. Ravi checked the transmission. The FBI was live. They were listening. Victoria signed the papers slowly. She kept her face calm, but inside her heart raced. "Almost there. Say it. Come on, Leo. Gloat. That's what men like you do." And right on cue, as he slipped the signed documents back into his briefcase, Leo pulled out his phone. "Excuse me a moment," he said with a grin. "I just need to make one call." Victoria nodded, retreating to pour herself another glass of wine. In the study, Mia leaned closer to the screen. Leo stepped into the hallway, phone to his ear. "It's done. She signed everything. Complete control is ours. Send the team in 48 hours. Start the asset transfers tonight." A pause. "No, she has no idea. I told her it was just temporary. Poor thing actually thanked me." Another pause. "Yes, we'll move her to the facility by next week. Diagnosis will hold up. Early dementia. No one will question it. She's been so out of it lately. Even her staff believe it. Inside the study, Ravi looked at Mia. We've got it. The moment Leo stepped back into the room, agents were already on the move. Victoria faced him with a soft smile. Everything okay? Perfect, he replied, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Let's toast to your recovery. She raised her glass, barely tasting the wine. Just as Leo lifted his to meet hers, the front door burst open. FBI, hands where we can see them. Leo froze, glass halfway to his lips. His eyes darted to Victoria, confusion twisting into rage. What the? He never finished the sentence. Agents swarmed in, weapons drawn, voices loud. Ravi entered with them, holding up his badge. You're under arrest, Mr. Graham. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted medical abuse, illegal asset manipulation, and attempted identity confinement. Leo lunged, but was tackled and cuffed before he got 2 steps. You set me up, he screamed at Victoria. No, she said coldly. You set yourself up. I just turned on the lights. Mia stepped out from the hidden study door, her small hands gripping the edge of the frame. Leo caught sight of her and hissed, You little rat. Victoria moved between them. You don't speak to her, ever again. As Leo was dragged away, he shouted obscenities, threats, desperate pleas, but no one listened. His voice was just noise now. Hours later, after statements were given and the house returned to silence, Victoria sat on the study floor beside Mia. The girl was curled in a blanket, eyes wide but dry. You were right, Victoria whispered. You saw what I didn't. Mia leaned against her. I didn't want him to win. Victoria kissed the top of her head. He didn't. Because of you, he never stood a chance. And in the soft hush of a house that had once been poisoned by lies, 2 hearts sewn wounded, one young found a quiet beginning. And tomorrow, they'd start building something stronger than trust, truth. 3 days had passed since the arrest. The house on the hill, once a silent witness to deceit, now felt like it could breathe again, but the shadows hadn't fully cleared. Victoria sat alone on the back patio in the late afternoon light, a stack of legal papers in her lap, her phone resting beside a cooling cup of tea. The breeze carried the distant scent of redwood and vineyard dust. It should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like aftermath. Leo Graham was in federal custody. The media had caught wind, and although Victoria had instructed her PR team to stay quiet, whispers were already circulating. Billionaire biotech executive betrayed by live-in partner. The headlines were circling like vultures, and she knew it was only a matter of time before cameras followed. Ravi had come by earlier, bringing more evidence the FBI requested, along with a thumb drive containing the final copy of Mia's footage. He hadn't stayed long. He had paused in the doorway, given her a nod of respect, and simply said, You did what no one else could have done. She hadn't replied. Not because she didn't appreciate it, but because she wasn't sure it was true. I didn't stop him soon enough. I didn't see it. Mia did. I just listened. She looked up as Mia's footsteps approached across the deck. The little girl wore mismatched socks and carried a drawing pad under one arm. Can I sit? Always, Victoria said, pulling out the chair next to her. Mia climbed up without a word and began sketching. Victoria watched her for a moment, then gently asked, What are you drawing? A house, Mia said, not looking up. This house? No, Mia replied, pressing her pencil harder. A house with no secrets. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. That sounds like a good house. They sat in silence for a while, the light turning golden orange. Finally, Victoria broke it. I've been thinking about something. Your mom. She was important to this family. Not just because she worked here. Because she was good, kind, brave. Mia stopped drawing. She used to sing when she cleaned. I remember, Victoria smiled faintly. She had a beautiful voice. She said, secrets make people sick, inside. Victoria swallowed hard. She was right. Mia looked up. Are you still sick? No, Victoria said softly, reaching to tuck a braid behind the girl's ear. I think I'm getting better. Because of you. That night, Victoria stood in front of a mirror, staring at her reflection. The circles under her eyes had faded, the lines of tension along her brow softening. She looked stronger, older, somehow but grounded. The woman who'd been drifting weeks ago under Leo's influence was gone. Her phone buzzed. It was her attorney. "We finalized the board statement." His voice came through. "Your control over Veritas has been restored in full. They're offering you the option to press civil charges along with the federal case." "I want to," she said immediately. "And Mia? What about her?" "She's not legally under your care. Not yet." Victoria turned to look at the hallway where Mia had fallen asleep on the couch, one arm draped over her drawing pad. "Start the paperwork. I want her with me, officially." The next morning, Victoria drove Mia to a quiet courthouse 2 towns over. No press, no attention, just forms, signatures, and a quiet nod from a kind-eyed judge. Mia said little during the ride, her eyes watching the world slide by through the window, but when they stepped back into the sunlight, she squeezed Victoria's hand. "Does this mean I don't have to go?" "You're home," Victoria said, "where you've always belonged." The following days passed with unusual calm. Victoria returned to Veritas's offices, walking through the glass doors with a new sense of ownership not over the company, but over her own judgment. Her team welcomed her with quiet support. No one asked questions. Ravi, now sitting in the research division's interim director chair, greeted her with coffee and a slight grin. "Felt weird running things without you," he said. "You did fine," she replied. "Maybe too fine." He smirked. "I prefer the lab anyway." She sat down in her office for the first time in weeks and opened her laptop. Emails, contracts, medical review reports, they waited like polite dogs. But before diving in, she opened a blank document and began to write. Not a business plan, not a legal outline, a letter. "To Mia," she typed. She didn't know why exactly. Maybe because she owed her more than words. Maybe because the girl's presence had unearthed something buried deep. The idea that even the smallest voices can carry the weight of truth. Later that evening, Mia found the letter folded under her dinner plate. She read it silently, lips moving over every word. When she looked up, her eyes were glassy. Victoria whispered, "You're safe now." Mia didn't speak. She just nodded and reached for her drawing pad. That night, Mia drew a new house. Not one surrounded by walls or secrets, but with wide-open windows and a swing hanging from an oak tree. She drew herself standing beside a woman with messy hair and tired eyes. Above them, in bright crayon letters, she wrote, "We watch together." And in the quiet warmth of that house on the hill, 2 survivors continued their healing not through revenge or escape, but by building, slowly, a place where truth could breathe. The first time Victoria took Mia to the Veritas campus, the girl clutched her drawing pad so tightly that her knuckles turned white. From the passenger seat of Victoria's sleek black Tesla, she stared at the towering glass building that shimmered under the California sun. It was beautiful and quiet, with trees lining the entrance and a fountain bubbling in the center court. Yet for Mia, the silence didn't feel comforting. It felt like the pause before a question. Inside, the security guard greeted Victoria with a "Welcome back, ma'am," and gave Mia a smile. The girl offered only a nod, her eyes scanning every corridor like a detective. Victoria noticed, gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here, I promise." Hoso. They rode the elevator to the top floor where Victoria's office waited untouched since the day she stopped coming. The assistants had dusted and reset everything, but the air still carried something stale, like unspoken memory. Mia wandered near the window, looking down at the employees below. "They don't know what happened," she murmured. "No," Victoria said, hanging up her coat. "And they don't need to. Not everything needs to be public to matter." Mia nodded, tapping her pencil against the edge of her sketchpad. "Do they know Leo's gone?" "They know he's not coming back. That's enough for now." Later that morning, Ravi joined them. He wore his usual scuffed sneakers and a clean button-down shirt, clipboard in hand. "I didn't think you'd bring her to work," he said softly as he stepped in. "She asked to come," Victoria said. Mia looked up. "I wanted to see where he tried to take things from her." Ravi blinked, then crouched to her level. "Well, thanks to you, he didn't." She shrugged. "He tried. That still counts." Ravi stood, looking to Victoria. "She's sharper than most adults I know." "Tell me about it," Victoria said, smiling faintly. They moved into the conference room later, a smaller session with Veritas's legal team and ethics committee. Victoria had called it not to clean up a mess, but to plant a seed. She introduced the idea of creating a children's advocacy division under Veritas's public health wing, something to fund, protect, and amplify young voices like Mia's. "We focus so much on innovation," she told them, "but forget that the most powerful alarms don't come from labs. They come from people we often ignore." The room was quiet when she finished. Then slowly, one by one, hands nodded approval. That night, back home, Victoria sat with Mia in the living room. A fire crackled, and the scent of grilled cheese lingered in the air, Mia's favorite. The girl rested her head on Victoria's lap, sketching shapes in silence. "I want to ask you something," Victoria said after a long pause. Mia hummed. "Do you want to go back to school?" The pencil stopped. "A real school?" "Yes, or tutors, or whatever you'd feel best in." Mia didn't answer right away. Finally she said, "I liked school, before. What changed? After Mom died, I didn't talk much. Teachers thought I needed help. Other kids thought I was weird." Victoria traced a slow circle on Mia's shoulder. "You're not weird. You're observant. That scares people who aren't." Mia turned to look up at her. "You'll still let me stay even if I don't go?" "Of course," Victoria said. "But you deserve a chance to be a kid again, without having to protect anyone." Mia stared at the ceiling, as if listening to a secret there. "Okay, but only if I get to come here sometimes too. Deal." And the next few weeks unfolded with a quiet rhythm. Victoria divided her time between rebuilding Veritas's image and rebuilding something far more important, a life that felt honest. Mia started private tutoring with a retired teacher named Mrs. Elkins, who had snow-white hair and a fondness for puzzles. Slowly, Mia opened up in class. Slowly, she smiled more. At the same time, the Mia project took shape. It began as a whispered idea, then became a public announcement. The press, hungry after weeks of silence, devoured it. "Youngest whistleblower inspires change in biotech giant," the headlines read. Victoria didn't speak much to the media, but she did release one short statement. Sometimes, the smallest voice can tell the loudest truth. One day, Mia returned from her lesson carrying a paper certificate. "Mrs. Elkins says I finished my whole reading goal for the month," she said, proud but tentative. Victoria knelt and read it aloud, then framed it in the hallway near her own diplomas. "This belongs right here," she said. Mia beamed, her smile wide and toothy. For the first time in weeks, she looked like what she truly was, a 6-year-old girl reclaiming her space in the world. One evening, as Victoria flipped through documents in her study, Mia wandered in holding her sketch pad. "I drew something," she said. Victoria set her papers aside. "Can I see?" Mia climbed onto the armchair and handed her the drawing. It was of a courtroom, a small girl on the stand, a woman standing beside her, and a crowd behind them listening. Above, in thick blue crayon, it read, "They heard us." Victoria stared at it for a long time. "This is beautiful," she whispered. Mia rested her head on her arm. "I don't want to be afraid of remembering anymore." Victoria pulled her close. "Then we won't be. We'll remember out loud." And under the gentle hush of that night, with pages turning beside the fire and pencils sketching quiet courage, they began again, not as victim and savior, not as billionaire and orphan, but as two souls bound by truth, building a new kind of legacy. One not forged in power or silence, but in voice, in love, and in trust, rebuilt one moment at a time. The story teaches us that the quietest voices often carry the most urgent truths. True courage is not always loud, it sometimes whispers, watches, and waits. Through Victoria's journey, we learn that justice isn't just about punishment, but about restoration, protection, and giving voice to those often ignored, especially children. And in Mia's silent strength, we are reminded that even the smallest light can pierce deep darkness, guiding not just one life, but many. In the end, healing does not come from forgetting, but from facing the truth and choosing to build something better. Victoria stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her navy blue blazer, her reflection clearer than it had been in months. The press conference was scheduled for noon, and for the first time in a long time, she felt prepared not just for the cameras, but for what the moment represented. Across the hall, Mia sat at the breakfast table finishing her cereal, legs swinging beneath the chair. Her drawing pad rested beside her, already open to a new page. "Are you nervous?" Mia asked, not looking up. A little, Victoria admitted as she stepped into the kitchen. But the good kind. The kind that means something important is about to happen. Mia nodded slowly, chewing thoughtfully. They're going to ask questions about Leo, right? Probably, Victoria said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. But I won't let them make it about him. Will they talk about me? Mia's voice dropped slightly. Victoria paused, then crouched beside her. Only if you want them to. The Mia Project speaks for kids like you, but it's your choice if your story is part of that. Mia glanced sideways, then reached for her crayon. Then okay. But only if you tell them I'm not scared anymore. I will, Victoria promised, brushing a braid back from her face. At Veritas headquarters, the press had already gathered. Reporters clustered along the velvet ropes, microphones poised, cameras focused. Inside, the boardroom had been transformed into a soft-lit stage with the company's emblem behind the podium and a single line beneath it. Truth begins with voice. Victoria walked up the steps slowly, her heels silent against the polished wood. She adjusted the microphone, glanced once toward the wings where Ravi stood nodding his encouragement, and then looked into the crowd. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady. "A few weeks ago, I stood at a crossroads most people don't expect to face. I learned that someone I trusted deeply had been deceiving, me manipulating not just my choices, but my health, my memory, and the future of this company." Cameras clicked. No one breathed. "But this isn't a story about betrayal," she continued. "This is a story about how one small voice refused to be silenced. A little girl named Mia saw what no one else did. She asked questions. She spoke up. She saved my life." There was a murmur in the room, a collective intake of air. "Today, we're launching the Mia Project," Victoria said. "An initiative dedicated to children who notice what adults ignore. We'll fund resources for young witnesses in vulnerable households, provide legal protection, mental health support, and most importantly, make sure their words are heard." She paused, then added with deliberate clarity, "Because when we ignore the quiet voices, we invite disaster to speak louder." The applause was slow at first, then built into something full and sincere. Reporters raised their hands, but Victoria answered only a few before stepping back from the podium. She didn't need to explain every detail. The truth, in its purest form, had already been spoken. Back at the house, Mia waited in the study watching the live feed on the tablet. When Victoria walked through the front door, she was greeted not with fanfare, but with a soft hug around her waist. "You told them," Mia whispered. "I told them," Victoria said, kissing the top of her head. That evening, the two of them sat on the porch swing overlooking the valley. The light was golden, the vineyard rose casting long shadows across the hill. "Do you miss him?" Mia asked suddenly. Victoria didn't answer right away. "Sometimes I miss the person I thought he was, not who he really was." Mia nodded slowly. "That makes sense." They swung in silence for a while. Then Mia asked, "Do you think people will believe other kids now?" "I think," Victoria said carefully, "that we've made it harder for them not to." Mia looked up at the stars starting to blink into view. "Good, because I used to think the world didn't like kids like me." "Kids like you?" Victoria asked. "Ones who notice, ones who remember too much." Victoria wrapped an arm around her. "The world needs kids like you. It just hasn't always known how to listen." Later that night, Victoria watched as Mia drifted to sleep curled up beside her framed certificate and her newest drawing, this one of a megaphone growing out of a tree. She traced the lines with her fingers and smiled. The roots, she realized, were her, but the voice the leaves reaching out into the sky that was Mia. And in the silence that followed, a thought came to her not loud, not urgent, but solid. They had not just survived, they had planted something. Something that would grow long after the headlines faded, long after the questions stopped. They had planted truth, and truth, when protected, always finds its way to light. The following week brought a shift neither of them could quite name, but both felt. It was in the way Victoria walked through the halls of Veritas with a steadier pace, and in the way Mia now lingered longer at the kitchen table, humming softly while sketching without glancing over her shoulder. Healing didn't arrive with fanfare. It slipped in like morning fog, unnoticed until it warmed the skin. One quiet afternoon, Victoria received an envelope from the district attorney's office. She read it alone in the study while Mia napped upstairs. sunlight pooling at her feet. The letter confirmed the date for Leo Graham's pre-trial hearing, 3 weeks from now. He had pleaded not guilty, of course. That much didn't surprise her. But what did give her pause was the enclosed list of proposed witnesses, and her name was first. She would have to testify, out loud, under oath. Not just about the technical violations or the forged documents, but about the pills, the manipulation, the morning she woke, unsure of her own thoughts. It wasn't the legal part that scared her, it was the vulnerability. Can I sit in front of strangers and explain how I didn't see it coming? How I doubted a child but believed a lie? She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into the drawer. That night, over grilled salmon and steamed carrots, she glanced across the table at Mia and asked, "Do you remember everything?" Mia looked up, puzzled. About what? About what happened. About Leo. What you saw. What you felt. The girl hesitated, chewing slowly. "I don't forget much. It's like little movies in my head. They don't stop unless I draw them." Victoria reached for her water. What if someone asked you to tell those movies out loud, in front of people who didn't believe you yet? Mia dropped her fork. "Like court?" Victoria nodded. "They're going to ask me to speak. Maybe not about you directly, but about what I let happen. And I'm scared. Not of the truth, but of how they'll look at me when I say it." Mia reached for her hand. "They should be scared, not you." Victoria smiled softly, blinking back a wave she hadn't expected. "Thank you," she whispered. "You make me brave." Mia grinned. "You make me a bed with warm blankets. That's better than brave." In the days that followed, they practiced. Ravi helped review legal documents, simulating courtroom questions, with an edge only a seasoned researcher could pull off. Victoria sat through them with her hands folded, her eyes focused, her voice even. But inside, she relived each lie, each choice to look the other way, each moment she mistook control for love. And at night, Mia sat beside her with her sketchpad, drawing images of strength, not armor or weapons, but soft things. Trees that bend but don't break, bridges held together by knots of ribbon, a candle that stays lit even in the wind. One afternoon, they visited the DA's office for an official interview. Victoria wore a charcoal suit, no jewelry, her hair pulled back. Mia sat quietly in the corner with headphones on, but her eyes were open, always observing. The lead prosecutor, a tall woman with silver-streaked braids, listened intently as Victoria recounted the timeline, her voice calm but resolute. When she finished, the woman leaned back and said, "Most people in your position stay silent to protect their image. You're not just testifying, you're tearing down something people thought was perfect." "I was never perfect," Victoria said, "but I believe in repairing what matters." "Oh." On the drive home, Mia asked, "Do you think people will ever forget about him?" "They'll stop talking about him," Victoria said. "But forgetting, I don't know. Maybe it's not about forgetting. Maybe it's about remembering what we learned." Mia turned her head toward the window. "I hope when I grow up, I still remember how it felt to be believed." "You will," Victoria said, "because you'll make others feel the same." As the day of the hearing neared, the house grew quieter, not with tension, but with anticipation, a kind of stillness before the next breath. The night before, Victoria tucked Mia into bed and sat on the edge of the mattress for longer than usual. "Tomorrow's going to be hard," she said gently. Mia stared at the ceiling. "Will I go with you?" "No," Victoria said, "but I'll carry you with me." Mia smiled sleepily. "Then I'll draw something, so you don't forget." She handed Victoria a fresh page from her pad. It showed a woman standing on a small island surrounded by waves. The woman wasn't drowning, she was lifting a lantern. And from the shore, a little girl stood, smiling, holding a matching one. At the bottom of the drawing was one sentence in Mia's neat handwriting: "You saw the dark, I saw you light it." Victoria didn't sleep much that night, but she didn't need to. She lay awake holding that drawing, heart steady, thoughts clear. When dawn broke, she stood by the window and watched the first light stretch across the hills. It didn't announce itself with noise or drama, it just arrived, gently, without asking permission, just like truth, just like Mia. And when she finally stepped into the courthouse the next morning, she did so not with fear, but with purpose. Because some stories aren't told to end things, they're told to begin again. And Victoria was ready. The courthouse smelled faintly of paper, disinfectant, and something metallic that lingered in the air like held breath. Victoria stood outside courtroom 3B, her hands clasped together, a folded sheet of notebook paper tucked in her blazer pocket, the drawing Mia had given her. She had memorized every crayon line, every soft curve of the lanterns. She didn't need to pull it out to feel its weight. The bailiff opened the door, nodding to her. "They're ready, ma'am." She inhaled deeply, squared her shoulders, and stepped inside. The room wasn't large, but it felt cavernous. Dark wood benches, high ceilings, the judge seated behind a raised desk, impassive and watchful. Leo sat to the right, flanked by his attorney, dressed in a sleek gray suit, his expression calm, eyes sharp. He looked thinner, but the smug edge remained, like he still believed this was salvageable. Victoria met his eyes once, then looked away. She didn't come here to engage with him. She came to speak the truth. The prosecutor approached the podium. "Your Honor, the state calls Victoria Hale." She stood and walked slowly to the witness stand, her heels echoing with each step. She took the oath, hands steady, voice clear. Once seated, she met the prosecutor's gaze, waiting. "Miss Hale," the woman began, "can you state your relationship to the defendant?" "Leo Graham was my partner," Victoria said. "We lived together for over a year. He had access to my home, my medical routines, and at one point my company's internal systems. And what led to your suspicions?" Victoria took a breath. "My health declined rapidly, memory lapses, fatigue. But it wasn't until a child in my care, Mia, warned me that I began to question things. She showed me footage of him switching my medication. There was a murmur in the room. Leo's lawyer objected briefly, but the judge overruled. "Continue," the prosecutor said. "I sent the pills to an independent lab. They were laced with cognitive inhibitors. When I confronted Leo, he deflected, gaslighted me, claimed I was overwhelmed, unstable. But I began documenting everything, installed hidden cameras, worked with a team to collect evidence. Eventually, the footage captured Leo planning a corporate takeover with a third party." The prosecutor nodded. "And what was the intended outcome of this takeover?" "Total control of Veritas Biotech. By incapacitating me through manipulated health and false diagnoses, Leo could convince the board I was unfit. He nearly succeeded." Across the room, Leo's jaw tightened. His attorney leaned in, whispering furiously. "Miss Hale," the prosecutor said softly, "do you feel safe today?" Victoria paused. "Now I do, because I'm not afraid to speak." The defense attorney rose. "Miss Hale, would you say your judgment at the time was compromised?" Victoria looked at him evenly. "My trust was compromised, not my intelligence, and certainly not my instincts, once I stopped ignoring them." The cross-examination didn't last long. The evidence was overwhelming: video files, lab results, timestamps, witness logs. The truth had already been assembled. All she needed to do was give it shape. After stepping down, Victoria walked past Leo. For a moment, he looked up, eyes meeting hers. There was no remorse in them, only the shock of losing a game he thought he had already won. She didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, reporters surged toward her, microphones stretched out like hungry hands, voices calling her name. She raised one palm, signaling for silence. "I won't answer questions today," she said calmly. "But I will say this. No one should ever be afraid to trust their own mind, and no one, especially a child, should have to carry the truth alone." She walked to her car where Ravi waited behind the wheel. As she climbed in, he glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You good?" "I am," she said. "Let's go home." Back at the house, Mia sat cross-legged on the floor, a stack of drawings spread out like a gallery. She looked up the moment Victoria entered, springing to her feet. "Did you tell them everything?" "I did," Victoria said, kneeling to hug her. "All of it. Even the part where I saw him on the camera? Especially that part." Mia beamed, then handed her a new drawing. This one was simpler. 2 lanterns again, but this time they stood on opposite ends of a bridge. Between them, a path of light connected the two. "I wanted to draw where stories go when they're finished," Mia said. Victoria smiled. "That's beautiful. What's it called?" "Chapter 9, Mia said proudly. Victoria laughed a sound that felt like spring wind, light and unexpected. "Then I can't wait to see Chapter 10. End of 46. That night, as the stars returned to their place above Sonoma, the house held a peace it hadn't known in months. No cameras hidden in walls, No whispers behind doors. Just breath and sleep, and the quiet promise that the worst had passed, not erased, not forgotten, but faced. And in that truth, there was power, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that builds, the kind that stays. The week after the hearing unfolded not with noise or chaos, but with a slow unraveling of tension. Victoria noticed it first in the morning show. She no longer startled at every unexpected sound, how her mind felt sharper, lighter. The air in the house was different too. It no longer held the weight of suspicion. Mia picked up on it, her drawings shifting from thick charcoal outlines to vibrant pastels. Her sketchpad became a map of safety, each page brighter than the last. One afternoon, Victoria sat in her home office, the late sun slanting across her desk, reading a proposal draft for the Mia Project's first community partnership. It was from a nonprofit in Atlanta that worked with at-risk youth, requesting funding to train social workers on how to identify children like Mia, quiet observers who rarely spoke, but always noticed. She smiled. This was the kind of work that mattered. She picked up her pen to sign the preliminary approval when Mia peeked in through the glass door. "Can I show you something?" the girl asked. "Of course," Victoria replied, setting the folder aside. Mia walked in, holding a cardboard shoebox wrapped in blue paper. She placed it carefully on the desk and opened it. Inside were rows of tiny paper lanterns, each folded from different kinds of scrap paper newspapers, receipts, colored construction sheets. "What are these?" Victoria asked, enchanted. "They're for the people who listened," Mia said. "Each one is a thank you." Victoria reached for a small green lantern with clumsy corners and a drawing of a stethoscope. "This one?" "For Ravi," Mia said. Victoria picked another, a pink one with tiny court steps drawn in pencil. "And this?" "For the lady judge." She kept picking through them on for Mrs. Elkins, one for the security guard who let Mia in with a wink every time, one for the neighbor who waved each morning, and realized that Mia had remembered every person who had made her feel seen, not just the heroes. "The helpers. I think we should do something with these," Victoria said. "Not just keep them in a box." Mia's eyes lit up. "Like what?" "We hang them," Victoria said. "One for every voice that helped us find ours." Quote. Later that evening, they strung twine across the sunroom windows. Mia stood on a step stool, carefully clipping each lantern with tiny clothespins. As they worked, music played low in the background, an old jazz tune Victoria remembered from her childhood. The room transformed into something new, not a museum of trauma, but a gallery of gratitude. Ravi stopped by that night to drop off new updates from the legal team. He stepped into the sunroom and froze, eyes wide. "This looks amazing," he said. "You two made all these?" "Mia did," Victoria said, handing him a mug of tea. Ravi stepped closer to examine one of the lanterns, spotting the stethoscope. "Is this me?" "She says thank you," Victoria said. "In color," Ravi smiled, then leaned against the doorframe. "The media's still buzzing. Some outlets are trying to turn you into a symbol." "I don't want to be a symbol," Victoria said. "I just want systems to work better, especially for the ones no one listens to." Ravi nodded. The board signed off on the next round of grants. "We're expanding into 3 states by spring." "That's good," Victoria said. "Let's make it happen." When he left, Mia asked, "What's a symbol?" Victoria thought for a moment. "Something people look at and feel something bigger than just the thing itself. Like how a candle isn't just a candle. It's hope." Mia nodded slowly. "Then I want to be a whisper that makes people stop walking." End. Victoria pulled her into a hug. "You already are." The next day brought something unexpected. A letter from Leo, handwritten, no return address. Victoria opened it alone, in the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven. The handwriting was neat, too neat, apologetic in tone, but devoid of accountability. He called it a lapse in judgment, said he missed her, said he hoped she'd forgive him. She folded it quietly, slid it into the back of a drawer, and locked it. Not because she was afraid of it, but because it no longer mattered. Some things deserved silence. That night, after dinner, Mia sat cross-legged in the living room, surrounded by her lanterns. She picked up a fresh sheet of paper and began folding a new one. Victoria watched her for a moment before asking, "Who's that one for?" Mia folded slowly. "You." Victoria blinked. "Me?" Mia nodded. Because you listened when it was hard." Victoria felt a warmth rise in her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. She took the lantern from Mia's hands, tied a red ribbon to it, and hung it in the center of the room. And as the last notes of a lullaby drifted through the open window and night folded itself around the hilltop home, the lantern swayed gently in the breeze, reminders that even the quietest lights can outlast the dark. Spring arrived subtly, carried in by longer daylight, the soft rustle of new leaves, and the occasional hum of bees circling the garden boxes Victoria and Mia had started planting together. The house felt alive again, not in the grand, opulent way it once was under Leo's curated control, but in the honest, human way of forgotten shoes by the door, music playing from an open laptop, and laughter coming from the kitchen when the soup boiled over. One crisp morning, Victoria opened her inbox to find a message from the Department of Justice confirming the trial date. Leo Graham would stand before a federal judge in 60 days. The charges had been finalized: fraud, tampering with medical substances, corporate conspiracy, and attempted coercion through chemical control. She read the words slowly, feeling none of the rage she once expected to feel. There was no fire in her now, only clarity. Justice, she realized, wasn't about vengeance. It was about truth being restored to its rightful place. Later that afternoon, Mia came home from her tutoring session with Mrs. Elkins, her cheeks flushed, holding up a worksheet with a bright gold star sticker. She said, "I write stories like I've seen things," Mia said proudly. Victoria took the paper, scanning the neat handwriting. It was a short paragraph about a fox that didn't bark like other foxes, but everyone listened anyway. "That's because you have," Victoria said softly. "You've seen more than most adults I know." Mia leaned on her arm, thoughtful. "Do you think people forget what they've seen when they get old?" Victoria considered it. "Sometimes, but the ones who remember usually change things." Mia nodded slowly, then wandered off to her lantern gallery, where she added a new one, a tiny red and white checkered one with little ears drawn on it. "For the fox," she explained. The days that followed were busy with coordination. The Mia project began training its first field counselors. A university in Oregon reached out to establish a research partnership, and Ravi called every other day with updates from legal and public relations. Victoria managed it all with quiet control, but at night, when the house finally stilled, she sometimes walked through Mia's room just to watch her sleep. The girl's chest rose and fell in rhythmic peace, a hand usually tucked beneath her cheek, a crayon often still clutched in one hand. It grounded her, reminded her why this story could never be allowed to repeat. One evening, Victoria received a call from Detective Lang, the original officer assigned to Mia's mother's case. His tone was different this time, gentler, almost cautious. "I wanted you to know," he said. "We reopened the investigation into her death." Victoria gripped the phone tighter. "Why now?" "Because there were inconsistencies," he replied. "And because someone spoke up." A nurse at the old care facility remembered a conversation she overheard. She said the mother was afraid someone was watching her. "Leo?" Victoria asked, though she already knew. "We don't have confirmation," Lang said, "but the timeline matches. And now, so does the motive." Victoria thanked him and hung up, then stood in the dark kitchen for several minutes, her hand still wrapped around the phone. She didn't cry. She just breathed. Long, steady breaths. The next day, she told Mia gently, over a walk along the vineyard rows. The girl listened quietly, her gaze fixed ahead. When Victoria finished, Mia said nothing for a long time. Then, finally, "I knew she was scared, but she still made me pancakes that morning." She smiled while stirring the batter. "She was brave," Victoria said. "And so are you." Mia looked up at her. "Do you think she knew she was being brave?" "Sometimes," Victoria answered. "Bravery is just doing the next right thing, even when no one's watching." That night, Mia added a new lantern. This one had a little spatula and a sun drawn inside. "For the morning, Mom still made breakfast," she said. Victoria helped her hang it in the very center of the room. On the eve of the trial, Victoria stood in her closet, choosing her outfit with the same care a soldier might prepare armor. Not for protection, but for presence. She chose a deep gray suitsoft at the collar, strong at the seams. She found the envelope Mia had slipped into her drawer that morning. Inside was a drawing of Victoria with a cape, standing in front of a courtroom. Behind her stood Mia holding a lantern. Below it, In bold, shaky handwriting was the phrase, "Some heroes speak, others listen. You do both." Victoria clutched the paper, pressing it briefly to her chest. She didn't need applause. She didn't need the world to call her a survivor or a leader. She just needed Mia to sleep safely, and for no other child to ever whisper into the dark without being heard. That night, the house was quiet, the air cool. Victoria lay in bed, eyes open, listening not for threats, but for peace. It had been hard won, earned not through force, but through patience, resilience, and the soft strength of love that expects nothing in return. And as the moonlight poured in through the window, casting soft silver across the sheets, Victoria whispered into the dark, as if to Mia's mother, to the frightened parts of herself, to the world that hadn't listened in time. "We hear you now." The courtroom on the final day was fuller than before, but quieter. There was no shouting, no drama, just the stillness of consequence. Reporters filled the back rows, their pens ready, cameras already rolling. Victoria sat in the front, her posture composed, her hands folded in her lap, her breath even. Mia wasn't there by choice. She'd said goodbye before breakfast with a small hug and whispered, "You already told them the truth. Now they just need to do something with it." The memory of that hug stayed with Victoria like armor. On the bench opposite her, Leo looked smaller. His suit was too large now, and his eyes no longer scanned the room with control. They were dull, heavy, resigned. He didn't look at her. The judge entered. The final arguments were made, brief and final. The evidence had spoken long before this moment. After a short recess, the verdict was read, guilty on all counts. Victoria didn't flinch. She didn't smile. She simply closed her eyes and whispered under her breath, "It's done." Leo was remanded into custody pending sentencing. There would be more hearings, more headlines, but for Victoria, the story had reached its truth. She left the courthouse without speaking to the press, slipping into the passenger seat of Ravi's car. As they pulled away, he glanced over. "How do you feel?" She looked out the window. Not proud, not angry, just finished. Back at home, Mia was in the sunroom arranging her lanterns by color. She looked up when Victoria entered, her eyes wide with silent question. Victoria walked over, crouched beside her, and nodded. "Guilty," she said simply. Mia didn't respond right away. Then she carefully lifted one of the oldest lanterns, the one with the hand-drawn security camera and the word proof scrawled underneath, and placed it on the top string. "Then this one goes highest," she said. The days that followed passed gently. There were no more calls from lawyers, no new threats, just paperwork and planning. Victoria stepped away from the day-to-day operations of Veritas, shifting into a mentorship role. She still answered emails, still attended key meetings, but her focus had shifted. The Mia project had grown into something bigger than she ever imagined. 3 states had adopted its training protocols for educators and first responders. 2 more were drafting legislation to require child witness advocacy in family court. She was no longer fighting to be heard. She was building something so others wouldn't have to fight so hard. One evening, Mia sat beside her at the dinner table, picking at green beans. "Do you think there are other kids like me out there right now?" she asked. Victoria didn't hesitate. "I know there are. Even today? Especially today." "Then we have to keep going," Mia said, setting her fork down with sudden resolve. "We can't stop just because he's gone." Victoria smiled. "We won't stop." That weekend, they hosted a small gathering at the house. Just a few friends, colleagues, and supporters. Ravi brought his wife and new baby. Mrs. Elkins arrived with a bag of oatmeal cookies and a scarf she insisted Mia had to keep. They ate on the patio under strings of fairy lights, surrounded by laughter, clinking glasses, and the kind of conversation that drifts easily in the warmth of earned peace. At sunset, Victoria stood up and tapped her glass. "I don't have a speech," she said, "but I have a thank you. For every person here who listened when it mattered. This house, this life is because of that." She raised her glass, to listening. They echoed her words and lifted their glasses. Later, as the sky darkened and the guests trickled out, Mia stood at the edge of the hill, a single lantern in her hands. It wasn't folded like the others. It was round, whole, and lit from within with a small battery-powered light. She turned to Victoria. "This one's for the ones still waiting, the ones who haven't been believed yet." Victoria took her hand. Let's send it together. They walked to the edge of the vineyard where the wind was strongest. Mia released the lantern. It lifted slowly, dancing upward, wobbling once, then rising steady into the sky. They watched until it disappeared. That night, Victoria tucked Mia in and lingered at the doorway. "You okay?" she asked. Mia nodded. "I feel full, not like with food, just full." Victoria smiled. "That's a good way to feel." "Ugh." As she turned out the light and walked down the hallway, Victoria paused by the sunroom. The lantern swayed gently in the breeze through the open window, casting soft shadows against the walls. Each one carried a story, a moment, a name. And in the center, hanging highest, was the lantern Mia had chosen. Victoria stood there for a long time, breathing in the silence, then whispered into the room, "We told it, we lived it, and now we light the way." She turned off the lights, but the lantern stayed glowing,